Guys, this is What If Subaru from ReZero had the Omnitrix Part 3. Let's dive right into it. Okay, so it's been a little while. It's been like at least like a whole solid week since I posted a video. And that's because I was interchanging, because normally the last like 5-6 videos I've been posting, I've been in Virginia. That's probably where my audio felt a little bit weird for my avid watchers. But let's just dive right into it. Last time I left off was on a cliffhanger, literally, as we will see that Subaru would have sacrificed himself for the greater good. He sacrificed his life and chose to use, return by death to save everyone. He wanted everyone to have a happy ending, and he didn't want Rem to die. He, for some reason, didn't know him himself. He felt like he had an obligation to save him, no matter what. So more or less, Subaru would have jumped on the cliff, choosing self-sacrifice, then to just keep on going. So we start our story and continue it with Subaru waking up and being kind of out of breath. Everybody's confused on what's going on and why he just woke up screaming, but he relaxes and tells them it's okay, I fell in my sleep. As they would just chuckle, but more or less the same conversation that would play out between him, Ram, and Ram would have played out the same. And more or less, the story would progress itself and move itself the same way. Subaru would still talk to Beatrice yet again. Subaru would still have radio calisthenics with Amelia, still meet Roswell, and more or less, this time around, he was determined to make the best decisions, to put his life in the best part he can possibly do. He didn't want to restart any more times, and he had to make this roundabout the best one. He had to consider everyone's feelings, everyone's emotions, and how what he would do would affect them. He had to think bigger than himself. This time around, he had to think bigger. So what happened is, during the time where Subaru would have been cleaning up, he would have been working his butt off. I mean, day in and day out, cleaning and cleaning and cleaning. Always sporadic and very quirky and more or less energetic. Even when he looked like he was about to pass out, he was still putting on a front. And most of the people in the estate were noticing it. Even Roswell himself. He noticed Subaru at times when no one was looking, or Subaru thought no one was looking. He was exhausted. He was aspirated. I don't even know what that word means. What am I talking about, bro? More or less, Subaru was burning himself out faster than he could possibly even keep up with. Subaru even was caught by Amelia throwing up. Subaru getting up. Don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying so hard to save everybody, but I can't let them see me like this. As he wipes his mouth off and is about to walk back into the hallway, as he runs or bumps into Amelia. As Amelia pretty much says, "Are you okay, Subaru?" Him saying, I'm fine. Okay, I'm fine." As he would have walked past, Amelia basically throwing a little quirky, flirtatious vibe, as Amelia would have tried to tell him to stop and comfort him, but Subaru would just walk off, not really caring what she was saying in the moment. As Subaru would have sat down in the hallway, trying to compose himself as he was about to get back up to do some sweeping, but being stopped by, of all people, Rem. As Rem would have stopped him and told him that she needs to talk to him. As Subaru was confused, she would have pulled him into a room, asking him, "Are you okay?" Subaru being confused and chuckling, saying, "Of course I'm okay, Rem. Beautiful girl like you shouldn't be worrying about me." And her stopping him, saying, "Shut up. I know you're not okay. You look exhausted. You look like you're drained of life. Your bags under your eyes have grown in the last 2 days. You look like you've been pushing yourself to the limit. You don't look okay, Subaru." Subaru would have sighed, saying, I'm fine." She would have said, "No, you're not. I knew someone like you a couple years back." Subaru being confused, and us, the audience, being confused as well, because this never happened. But Subaru would have heard from Rem that she knew a friend like him that pushed everything everything she had into everyone else, and looked exhausted all the time. Threw up, went to sleep barely any time, and more or less died before she can even do anything for herself. Rim didn't want that for Subaru, and she barely knew Subaru, but she knew he was a good person enough to know that he was willing to sacrifice his life or put his life in line for Amelia, and also do all this work. And more or less, she would have thought he was a kiss ass because he was doing all this working, and he literally just got here. But more or less, she would have convinced him to sit, or basically to lay his head on her lap. She thought this would be comforting, considering that Subaru talked about it a lot more in canon, in terms of just pretty much glimpsing over it and talking about it around Amelia. So more or less, Ram would have comforted Subaru instead of Amelia, and that would have changed the course of the story a little bit more than usual. With this being said, this would have pushed her whole climactic vendetta against Subaru, thinking he was a witch cultist, a little bit lower down the list, but more or less she would still be kind of, I guess you could say, suspicious of Subaru, even after him being comforted by her and him confiding in her and crying and saying that it's so hard, that he's been through so much in life, and that more or less he's trying to do the right thing. He always has, but maybe doing the right thing isn't good enough. As Rimmer told him that that's nonsense and maybe you should just go to sleep. And she didn't know what to say. Those words kind of struck her, as she thought maybe Subaru was being guilty. Maybe he is a part of the witch cultists. Maybe he was just being guilty because he didn't want to kill them, and more or less he was weak-willed. So she codified herself doubting him even more so, but still being there for him, pitting a type of memory, or I guess a catalyst for the future. Now we could switch the next day after Subaru would have fell asleep, and Amelia would have saw, Rim seeing, Subaru's head pretty much on her lap, sleeping, and them both saying that he looks cute when he sleeps. After that would have happened, Subaru would have woken up the next day, being mad at himself for falling asleep and crying in front of a beautiful girl, as he would have stopped himself saying, why am I saying that? Don't I like Amelia? As he would have tried to convince himself, but he would have been kind of in between a rock and a hard place. But we could switch a couple hours later. Now, during this time, we see Subaru would still go to the village with Rim and Ram, and more or less would have still had his whole conversation with Beatrice before he left, having her check him for curses before he left the estate. He would have gone back to the village, and more or less would have done the same thing like in canon. He would have allowed all the village people to touch him.
You're gay! He's gay!
In specific areas. Pause! But more or less, he would have made sure that any place that was touched, he would know who touched it.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
More or less, Subaru would make his rounds, doing radio calisthenics and basically cheering up the village, and the village finding more character in him. More or less, the village would like him. Just like in canon, they would look up to Subaru and find him inspirational, considering that Subaru did also do radio calisthenics in alien forms multiple times to pretty much, woo the children, turning into characters like Heat Blast, making some fireworks, turning the characters like Eye Guy, and using his eye powers to make icicles and stuff like that, because I do know Eye Guy can shoot different elements from his eyes, which is crazy work, by the way, but whatever. So, more or less, Subaru would make his impression on the village very known. Doing this, we will see that Subaru would have started to get a little bit, near his end, as he would have came by the puppy, like an original, and last time, and pretty much just, on the puppy, petting the puppy, it biting him, and not thinking much of it, as he would have talked to the kids. He would have gone back to the estate after having the same conversation with Rim about, demonic inspiration. About it's a good thing, and he's demonically inspired. As Rim would have chuckled at this, kind of finding it amusing, but also liking that term. As Subaru would slowly start to crack away from her rough interior, with his more charismatic and more outgoing personality even more so, being greatly inspired by the characters he watched as a child, more or less. My narration a little off. Child, what the fuck? As a child, he was greatly inspired by characters like Ben Tennyson, Peter Parker, Spider-Man. Well, same character, but more or less in this continuity, let's just say Subaru's mentality is a lot more 10 times fuller. So more or less, we see Subaru, Ram, and Ram make their rounds back through the gates of the estate, coming past Roswell. Roswell saying that, well, I'm about to go. I have some business to attend to. So I hope you guys keep the estate in good working condition when I'm gone. And keep Amelia safe, Subaru. I'm counting on you and your little trinket. As he flies off, as Subaru's not too impressed if he can fly. He is kind of, he is kind of shocked, but he isn't too impressed because he can literally do thousands of more crazy things with the tap of his wrist. But more or less, Subaru, I'm saying more or less way too much, guys. I'm so sorry. But what will proceed to happen is Subaru, Ram, and Ram would have made their rounds back to the house, paying up all the supplies they got from the village. And later that night, Subaru would have asked Beatrice, to check up for curses yet again. Beatrice saying, I suppose I can. But what is all this talk with curses and all? What is that? As Subaru would have looked at his hands, trying to remember who touched them there, but realizing the only thing that touched him there on his hand was the puppy. As his heart would have sunk, as he would have instantly remembered that that puppy couldn't be a shaman. What? As he instantly runs out of the room, and Beatrice is confused on why he just skedaddled so fast. Subaru is running down the hall as he looks at the Omnitrix, and he's about to get ready to do some work, as he bumps into Rim. As Rim's confused on where he's going and why he's in such a rush, and why he literally just full Nelsoned her, or more or less freaking T-boned her, as he helps her up saying sorry, as he's a little bit bruised too, because she's literally not human. She got that extra durability on Hall of Fame. So more or less, she would have asked him where he's going so fast, as Ram would have also heard the commotion running down the stairs, asking the same thing as well. As Subaru would have told them that it must be some sort of shaman or cursed being down in the village, as I got cursed, and Beatrice, pretty much stopped it. But a puppy, the puppy the kids were playing with earlier, as Roman had said, yeah. Well, that puppy gave me a curse, and I'm pretty sure those kids got it too. And it's a killing curse of some sort. That's what Beatrice at least said. As the group would have been kind of confused, but Ram being very, calibrated and saying that we can't go now. We need somebody to stay here for the estate, and also they can handle themselves. As Subaru would have said, no, they can't. As Ram would have said, what do you mean? Subaru's saying that he doesn't know, but he feels like he has a moral obligation to these people. As Ram would have said, you don't have a moral obligation to these people at all. You have a moral obligation to this estate and Master Roswell. As he would have said, I do, but it's just not the right thing to just leave them there. We have to do something. As they would have been going back and forth, as Amelia would have walked into the corridor, or more or less the area, the walkway they were at, the front door basically, asking them where they were going, and Subaru saying that he's going to be going to handle some business, and it's something dangerous happening in the village. As she would have said, I can't stop you, can I? Him saying, no you can't, but you thank you for trying, or thank you for considering. As she would have chuckled, saying, well, let me bless you real quick. As she kind of gives him a blessing, trying to pray over him. As Subaru appreciates this and runs off. As Ram would have been the one to come along with him, as Ram, Amelia, and the rest of everybody else in the group would have been staying back at the estate. During that time, we see Subaru would have been running back to the village with Ram, as they would eventually make their way to the village, seeing a townsfolk with a pitchfork, or more or less a torch, walking to the village, yelling out someone's name, a kid's name, one of the kids Subaru talked to. Subaru runs over to him saying what's happening, as he says the whole village is in disarray. All the children have been gone, they're disappeared, they're not in their rooms or their beds. The village is going crazy. As Subaru has said that I might know where they are, as he would have ran past the village man, and eventually would have gotten near the same barren type fence area the kids would have been at, where they found the puppy. Seeing that one of the barrier crystals were down, Subaru getting real serious, seeing that those kids are in danger. as the village man would have been yelled at Subaru to go get some help now, as Ren would have asked him what's he going to do, as Subaru saying that he's going to handle it, and he's going to save those kids. As Ren would have said that you can't do it alone. There are thousands of mob beasts in those forests, and those kids are probably dead by now. We can't really do anything. As Subaru would have yelled at her, or not really yelled at her, but would have snapped back at her, saying that I'm not going to let those kids die. Even if it's a chance they're still alive, even if they're mangled, they're still alive. Every life is precious for him. Everyone. And I'm not just gonna let those kids die. As Ren would have asked him, why are you so content on saving these children? You don't even know them. You barely met them for a week. As Subaru said, I do know them. I know one of them want to be a doctor. I know one of them want to become the strongest person in the village. I know what their dreams and aspirations are. And that just isn't something you can just forget. I'm not just gonna let those kids die, especially if I could do something about it. As Rim would be struck with these words, thinking completely differently about Subaru in a whole new light. As Subaru was determined to save those kids, just like in canon, and even more so now. He was determined to do good. He had the power of the Omnitrix, for God's sake. He had the power to do anything. And so far, he's only lost. But now he wants to win. Now he has to win. He has to save these kids' lives, and he has to make it right. He has to do the right thing and be the right person. As Subaru runs off in the forest, as Rin would have taken out her mace, or more or less her chain, or Morningstar, I'm pretty sure the name was Morningstar, as she would have taken out her Morningstar, and Subaru would have been like, what is that? It's for self-defense. But, Rin, what is it for self-defense, Subaru? As they would have just kind of just cut that whole conversation short, and would have ran into the forest. And then running, eventually coming across a clearing in between the forest and a field, seeing that it was a bunch of the kids in the circles. As Subaru would have been looking around, as she would have been pretty much, healing these kids, trying to keep them at ease, and trying to prolong their life longer to get them to the village, or something along those lines. As Subaru would have said, so, can you smell the mob beast out here? Her saying, yes, I can. There's a lot around us. A little deeper in the forest, at least. As Subaru said, yeah, well, I bet you can sense the witch, huh? As Subaru would have saw Rim being, I can smell you. Subaru saying, yeah. I know it's not a very desirable scent, but I assure you, I'm not a part of the witch cultists, and I assure you, I'm not gonna let these kids die. But I need to go. As her being confused, saying, what do you mean? As Subaru saying, this isn't all the kids. It's one more girl. As he runs off into the forest, as she keeps on to keep these kids safe, as Subaru can handle himself, her having a little bit more faith in his ability to do what he has to do, hearing about all the stuff that he did, and also seeing his transformations in person when he was doing tricks for the kids. Now we see Subaru run into the forest as he looks around, but he hears a knife chattering noise. Him being confused on what that was, but out of nowhere, a huge shriek would have came right towards him. Subaru dodging narrowly, having his cheek nicked by a blade similar and very, very recognizable Elsa's blade. Elsa, the bow hunter, the bow displantimer, would have showed up. The butcherer. As Subaru would have gotten up, stumbling on his words, saying, why are you here? Well, my employer sent me to take you down. Gave me your location, gave me the time and place, and somehow he knew you would be here for the children. Somehow he knew you were a quote-unquote good person, which I just can't find very amusing. But what's funny to me is that around here, heroes get gutted and killed by me. As she would have thrown another knife towards Subaru, and Subaru would have narrowly dodged it, but her chucking over towards Subaru and trying to rip his throat out before he can go for the Omnitrix, but Subaru dodging yet again by tripping on some mud as he would have fell down on the floor, transforming into Diamond Head! Him transforming into Diamond Head. As Subaru would have gotten back up, using diamonds to propel himself into the ground, or up into the sky, as he would have landed on top of Elsa, trying to land on top of her at least, but her dodging narrowly as she would have started to go for slashes and cuts and stabs and weaves. But nothing was happening. It's Diamond Head, bro. He doesn't have skin for real. Like, he doesn't even have a core. Like, I'm reading that ass. Like, he's a diamond. And I'm pretty sure, aren't Tetramers like single-celled organisms? Like, they're made out of pure-ass diamond. Like, I don't know. But more or less, Subaru would have been tanking all of her attacks as she would have gotten more furious and more pissed off, going deeper and deeper into her cuts, and Subaru starting to see more dents show on his skin. Being confused and also kind of surprised by this, as he would have started to take more and more attacks and more hits from her, pretty much tanking most of them, but before they can get any more furious and actually start penetrating and cracking his skin like a freaking glass plate, Subaru would have grabbed her arm and would have chucked her into like 5 different trees. It should have killed her, but she got right back up. She lunged straight towards Subaru as Subaru would have made a huge diamond wall, causing her to stop in her tracks, giving Subaru enough time to sneak into the forest. He would have been running, eventually coming across the young girl on the floor, but her chuckling and getting up. Subaru being confused on who this was. It didn't look like the young girl he knew because she was covered in a black cloak. As she got up, looking towards the mob beast, saying that you are dumber than I thought. As she takes off her cloak, it being Melly. As I hope I'm pronouncing that right or I'm remembering that right, but Melly. As Millie, I think it's Millie. Correct me in the comments, but I'm pretty sure it's Millie. But Millie would have presented herself to Subaru, saying, "Aren't you surprised?" Subaru being shocked and saying, "No, I'm not surprised as I thought I would be." Him making a diamond sword and telling her to surrender now, and he doesn't want to hurt her. But her chuckling and saying, "I'm not the person that's going to be hurt tonight." She would have chuckled as a bunch of mob beasts would have started to swarm Subaru. Before anything can happen, we see, well, Elsa popping. Nah, Subaru ain't getting no help. What do you think this is? Elsa jumps in trying to stab Subaru in the back as Subaru would have weave dodged her, grabbing her by the head and pretty much full Nelson her in the ground. I mean, making her eat dirt.
Oh! He needs some milk.
Him chucking her into a whole bunch of other trees and branches, getting her out of sight, out of mind, as she would have basically been getting up from a bunch of trees just crumbled around her. But while she's doing that, we see Subaru would have been going demon mode on these mob beasts, cutting them and slicing them like they were nothing, and more or less, them not really giving him a real big problem. Now, the bigger ones were giving him a little bit of a problem, but Subaru was just cutting and slicing through them and making diamond shards on the ground to pretty much shish kebab them and pretty much impale most of all of them. So he would have squad wiped so many of these things. Now, they were coming in waves, swarms. It was a lot. The Subaru started doing a lot of squad attacks, basically making diamond craters, diamond mosh pits, and more or less making huge projectiles and just shooting them lots of diamonds and just straight up spamming the long range attacks. Eventually, we said he would have gotten a little bit close to Millie, I'll be switching between those two names, but Millie, as he would have gotten close enough to her to land a solid jab in her face, trying to knock her out. Before they can connect, we see Elsa would have jumped in, blocking the attack with her knife, cutting Subaru's arm off, as he would have started to regrow his arm, as more crystals would have started to form around his arm, causing it to grow back and form itself anew. Subaru would have made a huge diamond pillar or more diamond mallet, trying to knock the crap out of Elsa's head, as Elsa would have dodged and weaved, trying to go for another slice towards Subaru, as Subaru grabbed her by the head, trying to crush it, squeezing as hard as he can, because more or less, if he doesn't kill her, he gonna die. Now, Subaru he did say all life is precious, but only the good one. Let's be real, bro. Ben was really about that timing. If you really watch the TV show and the comics, Ben, if it came down to it, he'll kill him. If it came down to it, Ben would have been sitting on business. And didn't he kill Vilgax? Like, bro, I don't know what's going on there. Bro. Or, wait, what happened? Because, like, Vilgax fell off after the first 2000 show. Like, when we saw him in Omniverse, And when we saw him in Alien Force, oh my goodness, this dude lost all his aura.
Oh, hell
So
no, man.
guns. But more or less, enough of me ranting. Subaru would have started to lock in as he would have tried to squeeze and squeeze as Elsa would have stopped moving, her head being crushed, as Millie would have been kind of confused and a little bit scared now that Elsa was pretty much clapped, as she would have tried to sick more dogs on Subaru, as Subaru would have smiled saying, "Is that really all you have?" But him slew, like, I mean, his smirk going clean off his face when he hears the Omnitrix timeout. Right before the mobbies can get right towards Subaru and they try to pretty much, well, jump him and pretty much maul him, before that can happen, we see a chain rattling in the distance. As Rim would have shown up, my king, my queen, the best girl in the anime. Don't debate me, guys. Let's be real. Subaru should have picked her off rip, but more or less, we see that she would have started to squad wipe all these mob beasts, keeping them away from Subaru, keeping them at a bay, as she would have been going hit for hit, dodge for dodge, slash for slash, as her healing factor, or more or less her regeneration, or her anatomy, physiology, I don't freaking know what it's called, bro. Her physical ability would have basically had her going crazy demon mode, pun intended. But her just keeping everything in more or less a controlled environment, keeping all of them away. As she would have looked at the little girl, as she would have not, she would have not hesitated for shit, bro. She would have lunged that mace straight towards Millie's forehead. But before it can connect, Elsa would have shown up. Elsa would have shown up, grabbing the mace, chuckling, saying, "Is that really all you had?" I applaud you for your brutalness, Subaru, but this isn't no field trip. As she would have started to chuckle and would have started to hyperventilate, rushing into a more fury of attacks, knowing that Subaru was easy licks now, but Rim keeping her at bay, trying to stay and keep her ground. As Subaru would have saw Rim and Elsa get into locked combat. Subaru grabs the diamond shard from his pocket, as before he even came here, more or less, Subaru was kind of putting in some contingency plans, considering that he does time out in fights. So when he was at the village and he turned to Diamond Head for the kids as a trick, he made a sword and gave it to the townsfolk, but also he made a dagger and put it in his pocket when he timed out. That dagger being around the same size as Kratos' Blades of Chaos, bro. Like, these are literally just diamond forms of Kratos' blades, and he made one and specifically, like, concealed it in pretty much his back jacket, more or less, like, I guess you could say, like, smuggling it. So Subaru took it out of his jacket, pretty much taking his coat off, or more or less his dress shirt off, because he was in his, butler attire, as Subaru started to try to slice these mob beasts like they were nothing. And the diamond blade carrying him a lot, bro. This thing was cutting through the mob beasts like they were butter. But with everything going good, something had to go bad. As out of nowhere, we see a Subaru to look back, seeing Rim get kicked on the ground right in front of him. Subaru knew that he was chopped cheese at this point. He was cooked. He was good eats. He was out of time. He had no Omnitrix like access right now, and all he had was a diamond dagger that was pretty much useless compared to someone that can actually box him and like get that dagger out of his hands. So Subaru got into a fighting stance, trying to use the dagger and trying to get into a more fighting frenzy, as Subaru would have started to lock in. Subaru would have tried to convince them to just leave him alone, as they would have said, "No, I don't think we are going to." As she starts to, well, walk him down. Elsa starts to walk him down. Walk him down, Elsa. Damn, she bad. But more or less, we see that, well, what will proceed to happen is Elsa would have walked down, saying that you heroes, you people, always think yourself so mighty, think yourself so righteous. You have to be the most idiotic man I've ever met. You're very infatuating. as he runs back, trying to get a good weave, or more or less pretty much sneak attack on Elsa. Elsa dodging it and stabbing Subaru in the rib, and more or less Subaru yelling out in pain. Her telling him to shh, it'll be over soon. I just want to bathe in your blood real quick. As she starts to pretty much wiggle her blade in Subaru's chest. Before anything else can pop off, we hear, well, a familiar voice saying, "Step away from him," as a white-haired girl would have came for the forest. I'm gonna leave off here, guys. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. And as always, guys, have a blessed day. Deuces.